welcome to National Herald. Many believe that it was because of the efficiency with which the LDF government handled the COVID-19 crisis that they have returned to power in 2021. In February this year, the drop in death rate in Kerala had become a subject of debate among health experts. It became an important subject to study, keeping in mind Kerala's decent reputation in terms of birth and death registrations in the country. Joining me today is a very special and well-respected public health expert, Dr. V. Ramankutty. He's a public health expert, an Indian health economist, and epidemiologist, currently an emeritus professor of the Sri Chitra Tirunal Institute for Medical Sciences and Technology. He has been involved with the People's Health Movement in Kerala. I must also add that Dr. Ramankutty has an MD in pediatrics. He is one of those rare people who have an MPhil in applied economics, a master's of public health. Sir, my first question to you, what has Kerala done differently from other states of India when it came to handling COVID-19 in 2020 and now in 2021?
I would answer that question in different parts because first of all, we have to understand that I think perhaps Kerala was better prepared because of many reasons. One is that Kerala has always had a functioning public health system, unlike many other states. There are PHCs, there are doctors in PHCs, staff are there, and generally health is a very important portfolio in any government. And so that is, we were prepared. And secondly, it so happened that recently there were a series of things like the floods in 2018-19, and then the Nipah outbreak. So it was kind of a rehearsal for this. People had to be organized and the system had to jump into action and do the proper things to contain the epidemics, so to speak, and help the people. So all those things, they got a chance at kind of practicing, if I may say so. But so that way also, in these two respects, this health system was very well prepared. So that is one important reason. And the second reason, I would definitely say that there was very good, leading from the front by the LDF, especially the health minister, Srimati Shailaja. So these two important factors, I think, helped a lot. And I wouldn't say it was perfect, but certainly, definitely at one time in the, we actually, I wouldn't mind saying that there was one point last year when we all thought, getting news from all parts of the world that we were lucky to live in Kerala. I mean, that is really saying something about the government.
Yeah, that is saying something about the government. You have been watching clearly what's happening in the rest of the country. Where have we failed as a nation in terms of our healthcare system?
I would say as a health expert or a health, I mean, I don't know whether I'm an expert, but I've in the public health field for several years. So some of us have always been saying that health receives very scant attention from the government in India, succeeding governments, not only this government. It's not fair to just point fingers at this particular government because our spending on health has always been very low. It's one of the few countries where only around 1% of the GDP is spent on public health by the government. And of the total amount or the total expenditure on health, 4/5 or 80% of it is coming from out-of-pocket expenditure by people from their families and households. And there are very many studies which say that catastrophic health expenditure pushes poor families into permanent debt from which it's very difficult to recover. So these are indicators of our poor health system. Very few states have kind of at least tried to buck that trend. I would say Kerala is one of them. And I have to mention that maybe Tamil Nadu is another state which has really tried to build up its infrastructure in health, but other states have not really. I mean, there are other states, but general picture has not been very positive. So that is one of the important things. So that is a failure is not for reason making. We have actually ourselves to blame for this. We have money and we have developed other areas in India, so like space research and also so many fronts we are doing very well in international, but health has been neglected, and I think, is a price we are paying for that. Then, of course, especially coming to the pandemic specifically, I think our strategies have somehow been not the right kind of thing. And one more, I would generally say as a health person that it has been very opaque. I don't know who is making really, who is advising the government, who is making the decisions. There are any number of committees, there is ICMR, this, that, but no scientist is really kind of the point person for this epidemic. It is like so there have been models which predicted a big outbreak in the beginning, a big surge. So I think the whole nation closed down without proper preparation, which itself was perhaps wrong. And the country's leading epidemiologists at that point of time, I think, warned against it, saying that it was going to bring in a lot of economic damage and we should not do it so suddenly in a country like India, where 80% of the economy is in the informal sector. And people are living from day to day. They don't have permanent incomes to fall back on. So that was neglected. So that was wrong. And secondly, I think at the end of 2018 and 2020, as the cases, of course, I would say the performance was not bad altogether, because you find that if you look at the 2020 scenario, our death rates were low, and we did not do too badly compared to many other countries. And what people expected in India did not happen. But at that point of time, I think somehow the government got the impression, I think, that this is over. And in spite of warnings from many public health people that usually pandemics happen in waves and there is likelihood of this variant mutating, I mean, the virus mutating. So that was neglected, I think, for some reason. I don't know what. So we have the second wave, which unfortunately in India, I think if you look at the graph, it is much worse than any other country. The curve is practically going steeply up at 90 degrees, and cases are happening.
So I must ask you, we can see that lots has gone wrong. Where we could have actually planned, where did we go wrong in our planning and our policy in terms of second wave?
In terms of second wave, I think there are some things we could have done better. One is perhaps we could have been very careful, and we could have tracked the virus variants. We did it, but I think it was late. But we could have looked at the mutations happening, and when we saw that the kind of fast spreading varieties were already in the country, we could have tried to put in preventive measures faster. We could have certainly tried to do the vaccination faster, made the vaccine available faster. Of course, there is a question of vaccine availability there, but even then, I think some of the blame has to be for the kind of distribution that we had, where I think enough people were not vaccinated. We had even now, it's the vaccination scenario is very poor. We have not vaccinated enough people. So these are some of the things we could have done. And I think we were in a hurry to open up, like places like malls and theaters that could have been held back a little longer, in spite of in view of the warnings about the second wave, probably. And of course, we had elections in many states. Perhaps elections cannot be postponed. That is not a good thing, but we could have at least had very strict kind of observances. I see that no state was that. And then, of course, there was things like the Kumbh Mela and all. All those things are things we could have been more careful about.
So what you're saying is that the lockdown might have not been a good idea, but opening up of malls was a bad idea, or opening up of such closely bound, closed places was a bad idea. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I would say that. I would say that everyday things like which affects, which is of very basic importance to people's everyday lives and the economy, like their everyday work and things like that, might perhaps should go on. But malls and the theaters and even sports events probably could have been held back a little longer, because those are areas people gather in large numbers, and it's well known that a kind of super spread can happen.
So you're also an economist. So it's important to ask this question: how could we have managed this virus and the economy together? I mean, it seemed like, it couldn't have gone well together. You're saying that the lockdown shouldn't have happened, but if the lockdown wouldn't have happened, people would have died. I mean, it's a catch-22 situation. What could have been our best solution?
That is very true. I mean, it is really a catch-22 situation, and I don't have really any answers because this is one epidemic where I'll frankly say that everybody is puzzled, and this is we really don't know much about the virus, and it seems to be initially it was thought of as a very mild kind of affliction, but now we know that it's not, and it's really doing a lot of damage both to health and the economy. And if you look at the countries across the globe, you will find that this problem is something which everybody is facing. This kind of trade-off between what to do about the economy versus what to do about keeping, I mean, health of the people. And so that same thing has happened in India also, and there is no real answer. What was initially what many epidemiologists suggested in the initial phase was not to go in for a complete lockdown at that point of time, but gradually go into restrictions on public gatherings and stuff like that. And well, as you say, probably that would have also have hastened the wave in 2020, and that would have brought the government very bad press and all that. So it's really difficult. I mean, it's very easy to say after the event, they should have done that, but I think it's not fair to say that also. I mean, there are very few options, and so there is no right answer for this.
Considering a lot of people are saying that there will be a third and fourth wave, what is your observation on that one? And if there is, how should India prepare for it?
It is possible, but what we learned from earlier pandemics is that, for instance, in the 1918 flu pandemic, I think it was the second wave that did the most of the damage, and after the third wave was there, but it was not very important. So what also happens biologically in the virus is that as it goes through the human population again and again, actually its virulence comes down because it has to survive. If it kills off all the people, then the virus cannot survive. So there is a kind of a balance. So ultimately, it becomes just another virus which causes damage in some people, but not in many people. So I think finally, what we are going to have is there is not going to be a kind of a completely corona-free status in the near future. We will always have a few cases, but our only hope is that it will not prevent us from having a normal life. At some point of time, we'll be able to go back to our normal activities and just deal with the virus as just another of those infectious diseases that we have to deal with. And I think some of these habits that we have started, like wearing masks in public and washing hands frequently, sanitizing and all that, and avoiding crowds, especially for elderly people, might have to continue for some more time.
Some more time is how long, sir?
That's very difficult to predict. Can be, I mean, in many countries, I think wearing masks, even before this, many South Asian countries, they had started wearing masks routinely in public, which is, I think, a fair precaution, because many can prevent a lot of usual viral infections which affect the respiratory tract, and that's probably something which probably will continue for a long time.
I also want to understand this whole data that has been reported in various newspapers, that there has been a drop in death rate in Kerala. Is it true? How do you see that data?
Yeah, the first data that has come in seems to indicate that last year deaths have been less. But as a person who has some exposure to statistics, I would not put too much on 1 year to the next year kind of change. It can be just chance. It can be just a chance fluctuation also. If you want to comment on a trend, it has to be some 7 years, 8 years. Otherwise, you just can't say that. It can be by chance also that this year. But then there are certain things that could have happened. One is definitely that accidents probably did not happen because for a long time there were no vehicles on the streets. And maybe there are some doctor friends of mine tell me that other serious cases were not very much present in hospitals. But that, I don't know how to interpret that. Does it mean that people died in their homes? That is also another question, because there is some indication in the data that the proportion of deaths in hospitals has dropped, which means the proportion of deaths which did not reach the hospital has shown a rise. So we have to look at have a detailed look at the data to see what really has happened.
What you're saying is that, of course, in a way, a lot of people who would have otherwise gone to hospitals didn't go also to hospitals in the last 2 years because of the way things have been because of COVID. A lot of heart patients and a lot of
Exactly.
kidney patients who go for dialysis have not been that regular.
The initial period, maybe from May to September, so people are very scared to go to hospitals, even though actually there were not many cases. COVID was not so rampant. But then they were advised also not to come to hospital, and it is possible that some of them might have died at home. We don't know. I mean, but anyway, those numbers probably will be very low, not too high, to affect the trend or anything. I don't think that. So I think this so-called drop in numbers is more of a chance finding than anything.
My last question to you is that how should India now, looking forward, considering this huge pandemic that has hit us, how should we plan our healthcare system? Because clearly, places like Canada or some places in Europe have done much better than us because of
Sure.
the kind of investment they make in healthcare. What kind of investments should we look at? And I also want to understand, what does Kerala do differently that the rest of the India doesn't do in terms of healthcare services?
I think conceptually it is very important. Conceptually, I think Kerala has maybe not because of any particular policy decision by any government, but it so happened because successive governments have not neglected health. They have emphasized building up the public sector in health, the government infrastructure, so that there is access to some kind of healthcare all over. So I would say conceptually that we have, even though there were a lot of privatization in the state also, uh, we have really kept to what I would call the primary healthcare approach, which is of course enunciated in 1978 in Alma-Ata, which the world now seems to have forgotten and gone away from. I think that is any system which is done well. If you look at it, you will see that there is a primary healthcare system in place. There are people who there's a first call and people can approach, and then the specialists come only at the next level, and bigger hospitals and the that kind of care is it's a tired system where we have some access to care even at the very primary level of villages or uh, very distant places. So I think Kerala has maybe unknowingly or not unknowingly built up that kind of system, and which I think is very important in this. And another thing which has helped us is the decentralization part, which happened in 1996, and so each panchayat has the hospital now belongs to panchayat, not to the state government, and they have the freedom to build up the hospital, build up the infrastructure, hire more people if they want, and make more services available at the local level, which is also in their interest because they want to be elected back. So which means that they have strengthened the system at the primary level, I like in no other state, I would say.
So what you're saying is completely different from what we hear here in Delhi, which is everything being very big and enormous. What you're talking about is that healthcare services has to be multi-layered. Many tiers have to be there. There has to be a healthcare system in the panchayat, also in villages also, and primary healthcare has to be given at uh, in those levels. And then if there is a requirement for expert, then you go to a bigger hospital. Otherwise the care has to be given at various levels. Is that what you're saying?
More or less true, but I would also caution you that we should not really romanticize the Kerala system. That is also something we should not do, because if you look at the Kerala health system, you will see that it's highly privatized. There are about 60% of the facilities are in the private sector. We have huge hospitals. we have corporate hospitals in the urban areas, and people do approach them. But when in a time like this, when there is an emergency and a pandemic, the corporate hospitals are not going to help. It is usually the public system which is going to help you. So we had that as a backup or a buffer. Existing and functional primary healthcare was available. So that is what this pandemic showed us, that we did right in building up those smaller level hospitals and health centers. Many of the Kerala, you'll be surprised if you look at the taluk hospitals. There are taluk hospitals in Kerala with very good advanced cardiac care available. There are taluk, community health centers where dialysis is going on, so which is very good. I mean, that kind of care being available at the primary level is very important for a state like Kerala, where there's a lot of chronic morbidity.
So this is going to be really my last question. Does in Kerala during COVID, were other patients being admitted in hospitals? Because we are hearing that a lot of deaths in the rest of the country have happened also because other patients and patients other than COVID were not really getting access to hospitals because of issues of infection and stuff. What happened in Kerala?
COVID hospitals and COVID wards in hospitals. So it was not mixed up, and other people were getting help. But now, because the second wave numbers get increasing, there's a fear that there might be a time when, especially with ICU beds, there might be a premium, and especially for other kind of intensive care, beds might not become available because every bed is taken up by COVID, and even COVID cannot be completely satisfied because we don't have. So even I think yesterday the Chief Minister said that we have. I mean, he was indicating the numbers, and that unless we are very careful, we might become we might see a stage where beds are in short supply.
Why do you have surplus oxygen and the rest of the country doesn't have any oxygen? How has that worked?
That also, I think they were far-sighted enough to. I think many hospitals and many districts had built up oxygen plans, and I think that was a good move.
Thank you very much, sir, for giving this time. And so my takeaway from your interview is that we need to develop a primary healthcare system in our country, in the rest of the country also. And you have also kind of cautioned us that we shouldn't romanticize the Kerala model entirely. There are private hospitals there also, but the fact that you have primary healthcare system, that has helped you to actually protect, care, and treat more COVID-19 patients.
Sure.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.